Hi folks, we are live in downtown Ottawa, just outside of the Prime Minister of Canada's office. This is Justin Trudeau's office in the Prime Ministerial block, just across the street from Parliament Hill. And standing on the doorsteps here is a woman by the name of Sally. And Sally, I'm wondering if you can just introduce yourself, explain why you're here, and what is the meaning of this sign that you are carrying with these beautiful pictures of this young man and yourself?
Yeah, my name is Sally Lane, and I am the mother of Jack Letts, who is a Canadian citizen who has been imprisoned on no charge in northeast Syria in absolutely appalling conditions described by the UN as akin to torture for the past 5 years.
5 years he's been held without charge in northeast Syria. You've reached out to the Canadian government before, I understand. What has their response been thus far?
Their response has been that there is nothing they can do about this situation, despite the fact that the Canadian government actually launched its own global campaign against arbitrary detention last year. It led a coalition of 58 countries against the practices, the illegal practice of detaining people indefinitely, no charge, no trial, no access to lawyers, no due process. But for some reason, known only to themselves, the Canadian government has exempted its own citizens from the practice of arbitrary detention. They haven't given us any explanation for this. They've just said it's logistically impossible to remove or provide for the release of 44 of their citizens, including 23 children, from the detention of their allies, the Kurdish authorities in northeast Syria, which is inexplicable. And you can compare it to the situation at the height of the pandemic in 2020, when the Canadian government boasted about the fact that it was able to repatriate 40,000 Canadian citizens from 100 different countries on 356 flights. Why can they not send one flight for 44 of their citizens held by their own allies in a region of the world that is not a war zone? It's perfectly safe. Journalists go there all the time. So do government officials, intelligence. The US military is there. The US military has even offered a military escort. But the Canadian government still pretends it's given us numerous excuses why it is unable to do so.
How many countries have nationals who are held in these prisons and camps that are referred to as Guantanamo on the Euphrates?
There are about 60 countries in total, with a number of prisoners. Most of the prisoners, in fact, in the camps are children. There are, Al-Hol is the biggest camp, the one that is best known. There are now about 60,000 people there, and 40,000 of them are children under the age of 12. There have a number of countries have done repatriations from the region, often countries that are much less resourced than Canada. Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan have taken home all of their citizens, I believe, and European countries have taken a number as well. We heard yesterday that the Dutch government has taken all its remaining women and children, so 29 children and 12 Dutch women, I believe. They have to be repatriated within the next 4 months. Sweden has now taken back almost all of its citizens. There are precedents for this. It's not difficult. You put people on a plane and you bring them home. It is really not a difficult thing to do.
And I understand there's quite a few international organizations that have called for repatriation. Are you able to share the names of some of them?
Yeah. The UN has called for repatriation. The Red Cross has, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Save the Children, and even Canada's own parliamentary committee has called for repatriation of all citizens.
Yeah. So you're here at the Prime Minister's office today. You've not seen your son in 8 years. What was it like watching Trudeau parachute into the Ukraine war zone on Mother's Day while you were here in Ottawa not having had any connection with your son for 8 years?
Yeah, the double standards and the hypocrisy is absolutely astounding. And we family members have been screaming and screaming about this for years, but it's almost as if the hypocrisy is entrenched. The government knows that it can get away with it. And the Ukraine war is a popular war. Everybody's on board with it. And different standards seem to apply to popular wars. The civil war in Syria has been very protracted. It's multilateral. Some of the fighters in Syria are now fighting in Ukraine. There's a lack of understanding about the complexity of the Syrian war. There were many different people fighting on many different sides, and it has been reduced to a very simplistic narrative. The government has no interest in making that narrative more complex or more true. And it is our relatives who have been caught up in all of this who are now paying the price.
Yeah. And can I just ask you to briefly explain how it is that Jack got caught up in this 5 years of arbitrary detention? Where was he coming from when he was captured?
He was escaping. He was escaping from IS territory that he'd been trying to escape from for a year and a half with a group of refugees, and he was captured or sold, we don't know which, to the Kurdish forces who were descending on the area and put into a Kurdish prison. The Kurd said that he would be home within the week, and that they knew that he had been one of the good guys in IS territory, that he'd actually opposed ISIS, that he had been imprisoned by them for refusing to fight with them, and that they were in negotiations with the British government for him to be home. Well, when the British government got involved, that was the end of that. They slammed the door. So despite all the Kurdish assurances or what they knew, their intelligence on the ground, all of that came to a halt once the British government decided they were going to make a political example of him. And hence all the others who International Rescue Committee has said that people were just swept up by the Kurdish forces, everybody. So people who had been trying to escape ISIS for years, they said the only thing that was definitely known about these people, that they'd been in IS territory. Nothing other than that could be said. Their real stories have been prevented from coming out. It was also known that it was extremely difficult to leave IS territory. You had to pay large sums of money to people smugglers to get you out, and anyone trying to leave was killed by ISIS. That was Jack's situation. He was threatened with being killed if he tried to leave. He was told that they imprisoned him twice. They told him that the third time they would kill him.
Yeah, what a horrific thing to have to carry and live with all these years. You're now at the steps of the Prime Minister's office, and I'm just wondering why it is you're here today and what you've brought.
Yeah, I have brought this, which is a letter to Prime Minister Trudeau, pleading with him to listen to us, because it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking that in a democratic country you can have people who are being held in a situation that is a complete violation of international law. And all family members say the same. We're shocked that our government can treat us like this, and that it's that our outrage at this has been muted and downplayed to an extent that the government can simply ignore the issue. And we don't want to be ignored anymore. We've spent 5 years being ignored, where our relatives' lives are in danger every single moment. People are dying in the camps every day. In 2019, 521 children died. And the world just shrugs and just says, well, they must be there for a reason, or it's too complicated, or we can't understand it. Well, while this is going on, while these people are in limbo, people are dying from malnutrition, from diseases connected to lack of hygiene, lack of water. The politics of the region mean that quite often the water pump is simply turned off, and families go without water for 2 days, 3 days.
Sally, you're talking today about trying to get a meeting with the Prime Minister, and it's often when loved ones of those who are being so seriously mistreated, that begins to change the tide and make a difference. And while it's important that you're here today to present this letter, for those who are watching this, Canadians, anyone else internationally watching this, what message do you have for them for how they can support you and all the families of the detainees who are held in Guantanamo on the Euphrates?
We want Trudeau and the Canadian government to know that people are looking at this issue, that they can't simply write people off and decide that they have no rights and no legal protection, that Canadians care about these things. They care about the democracy in their country, and they care about the mistreatment and torture of Canadian citizens. And I have been very heartened, I have to say, by the comments on the petition that we've sent out. There are thousands of people who care about these issues, and as we know, the government will only act if there is public pressure, if people show that they care about these issues. Otherwise, how long is this going to be dragging on? I can't be doing this. Jack doesn't have 20 years. People were in Guantanamo for 20 years on no charge. They're only now being released. We were told that the prisoners in Guantanamo were the worst of the worst. We're finding out now that they weren't. They, just like the people in Syria now, were swept up, rounded up, no evidence, no process, just warehoused. They are being warehoused, abandoned, and forgotten about. And we want Canadians to say we won't stand for this. We won't stand for our government abandoning our citizens. Citizenship is a birthright. You don't earn it. It's not something that you have through merit. It is something you have simply through existing. And if you have no legal protection simply for existing, then that's the situation we're in.
Oh my gosh. And when we did discover that there were children at Guantanamo, the world was outraged. And here you're talking about a situation where it's always wrong when children are detained, but here we're talking tens of thousands of children as well. So you referred to a petition. So if people Google Jack Letts and change.org, they'll certainly find that petition. I understand there's also a chain fast that you are participating in. What are you doing with respect to that chain fast, and are you going to be fasting yourself?
I will be fasting, yeah. I'll be fasting this Saturday. The chain fast goes from Mother's Day, so last Sunday, up until Father's Day, which is the 19th of June. And it's like passing on the baton. So one person will fast, the next day someone else will fast. And so we're aiming to get one person for each of those days up until June 19th to carry on the baton. And fasting is a way of showing solidarity to people who are enduring these privations every single day. Just one day of sharing those privations is a way of showing that we know, we understand what they're doing, and enduring that ourselves just for one day is a way of showing that solidarity.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So I understand you're about to present this letter requesting an urgent meeting with the Prime Minister. So we're just going to follow you as you go to the Prime Ministerial office. And it's just down here. And thank you so much for sharing this. I know it must be very difficult to share this publicly. There's a lot of pain and a lot of years that you have endured this. And hopefully by your speaking up and others speaking up, that will get the attention of the government, and they will actually, as you say, do what is very simple: book a plane and bring their citizens home. So we're here now. This is the reception area for the Prime Minister's office. And Sally, I think you're going to try and present your letter.
Hello. I have a letter here for Prime Minister Trudeau. It's about the situation of my son, who is arbitrarily detained in Syria and has been there for 5 years. And Prime Minister Trudeau has refused to do anything about this crucial situation. And also, not just my son, there are 44 Canadians there, including 23 children. And it's very urgent. I need to meet with him because I need to tell him the true story.
Okay. No problem, we're gonna accept that. We're just gonna put it in the bin.
Okay? Not the bin, as in...
not the bad
the
bin.
trash
So
bin.
you've got two, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the letter. This is the one that's going from Prime Minister Trudeau regarding the 44 Canadian men, women, and children arbitrarily detained. It's being delivered by Sally, who is the mother of one of them, and that gentleman is this gentleman here, Gentleman Jack, and he has been arbitrarily detained for 5 years. Mr. Trudeau has met with other mothers and fathers of individuals both imprisoned here in Canada and overseas. And we're hoping that we'll be able to get a meeting for you with the Prime Minister as well, Sally. Any final words for the Prime Minister? When he opens this, what do you want him to do?
I want him to repatriate all 44 Canadians immediately. This situation has gone on long enough.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the letter has now been delivered to the Prime Minister's office, and Sally is going to continue with the campaign to bring home not only her son, but all 44 Canadian captives. The Kurds themselves have called on the international community to bring everyone home, but sadly, the Canadian government, which prides itself on internationalism and on multilateralism and on working with other countries, is refusing to do so here. So please sign the petition, change.org, Jack Letts. Get involved with the Chain Fast at TASC, T-A-S-C, at web.ca. And if you're in Ottawa, join us for the May 19th 5-hour vigil in front of the Prime Minister's office, where Sally will be here waiting 5 hours. Each hour represents a year that Jack has been arbitrarily detained, seeking to get that meeting. Thank you to everyone for watching, and please get in contact. Let's resolve this horrific human rights abuse.